Hey, Textual. Can you confirm that you hear me? Because my chat is actually working. Although I just realized my chat box is not on. Now my chat box is on. Good morning, Cherry. Well, good afternoon. We can hear. Okay, you can hear me. Awesome. And I can actually see the chat today. And look, it's popping up. Hello, Ellen. You angel. So happy that you're part of the team now. And I'm so glad that you're blowing off work in some conference room somewhere to listen to me yammer. I have I'm like running super late today. So I'm not as prepared, but I think I'm prepared enough for today. Oops. I just realized my no conference room today, working from home. Boom. That's amazing. I love that. Perfect. Makes everything just so much better. I yeah, I'm having a day. Had an assembly today, which was fun, but it definitely threw off my entire morning. So, okay. Hello everybody. I am Missy. I'm pretty sure everybody that is watching knows who I am. I love books. I love people. I like to chat a lot. My favorite subject, other than my husband and kids to chat about, is to chat about books. I can go off on books. And so that's what we're here doing. This is my outlet for chatting about books and just going off and everything. So, I am an amateur critic. My only qualification for reviewing books is my love of books and respect for authors. So that's not a lot. So definitely take everything that I'm saying with a grain of salt, because today I'm going to be reviewing a Wattpad book. And so those of you who are watching who don't know what Wattpad is, pretty sure who is watching this is gonna know what Wattpad is, but it is just a website where amateurs, and the different levels of amateurs, will post their writing for this Wattpad website, and people again from all over the world can read it for free, comment on it. It is a lot of fun. It is so cool. You get to read a book and speak directly to the author. You get to see what other people's responses to that book was. It is so much fun. I love Wattpad, and so part of what I do on this Twitch on the stream is to review a Wattpad book, talk about it, and provide some insight. So I posted on Wattpad, this was just right before Thanksgiving, so I have not been doing this for very long at all. But when I review my Wattpad books, I like to do, and again, these are people who have reached out to me for a review. And last week I had gone crazy and talked like a bunch of nonsense about why I do these Wattpad reviews, and the huge disclaimer to anybody receiving feedback is to just take everything that you hear from anybody with a grain of salt, but especially me. Like I just stated, I am an amateur. So, but I have been trying to get a little bit more organized in my reviews, and I started with this idea that it's like, oh, okay, well, I'll vary my reviews on books based off of what I gleaned from the review, or what I gleaned from the book, and just go off of that. But for the most part, I stay pretty consistent. So if I'm doing a review, I'll go over why did I choose this book to review among the other submissions for a review. What is the first impression? And so that is based off solely the cover, title, summary, and tags. So that is all information provided by the author on Wattpad. Then I go over a character and a plot summary. I go over what I think is working for the book, and I go over opportunities for improvement, favorite quotes, and then my concluding thoughts on the book. So if you are wanting a review on your book, just know that that's kind of what you should expect, unless I feel like there's something else I want to discuss from your book that was like glaringly obvious when I read the book. So by the way, if that's what you're getting, hello. little cat. Welcome to welcome to Missy's Book Club. Happy to have you. So basically that is kind of how I start with my reviews. That's how I like to, or that's kind of like the very, very basic like outline for how I like to do that. So if you're looking for a review, I can provide some feedback on that. But again, if there's something like so crazy that I want to discuss and I spend all my time focused on that, then I just might. So I'm just jumping right into it because I've been going all morning and, I'm very excited about this one. So, hello, let's see here. Okay, so getting straight into the review. I'm going to be reviewing Not My Little Sister by Lost Love Fairy on Wattpad. And so initially, why did I choose this book to review this week? And this is not something that I would normally want to read in my spare time. And so I tried to review books that I only would review, or that I would only actually already read. You know, like it's something that I would check out. I only review books that I would check out normally. So just because I care a lot about my time, I have very little free time. I spend all of my free time reading and writing. And it's very, very precious. My time is very precious to me. I don't sleep a lot. I don't rest a lot. My entire piece, all of my break time is spent seriously reading and writing. Like that is it. I don't watch TV. I don't lounge around. I've deleted my YouTube, TikTok. Like I do not do that kind of stuff. So skip this one personally. Also care about my time and was reading other stuff. This is, I'll get into this book, but basically this is not something I would normally read at all. And so I try not to do that because for a few different reasons. Number one, I really care about my time. And I feel kind of like that, the food critic in Ratatouille, where I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, but at the end of when Ego, the food critic, is like talking to Linguini, who is the human chef, he says, you're pretty skinny for a guy who loves food or likes food so much. And Ego's response is, I don't like food. I love it. If I do not love it, I do not swallow. Cherry, I love you. That you knew exactly what I was talking about. Yes, I love books. I love to read. I am also a very impressionable person. So if I'm reading a book, I become the main character. My mind is in that book. I am obsessed. I'm very I cling to it, and that's how I roll. So if it's not something that I'm interested in, then that's going to suck for me, right? I want to read something that's going to be, that I'm going to be interested in. Although I do have a huge variety of things that I like. So romance is definitely, it's on the list of things that I like, but I do not read romance stories very much. Like chick lit, I feel like is, again, romance, but I normally like those if they're just really quick and not very steamy, and it's also a comedy, or there's some other piece to it. Anyways, so that's kind of my whole spiel for another reason why I don't like to read it. Also, I read or review books that I wouldn't necessarily pick. Another reason is that I don't want my taste to affect my review, right? So this, say it is, I'm trying to think of a type of book that I don't really like, and I can't think of anything in particular. But if I don't want it to be oh, I am giving this book a terrible review simply because I couldn't buy into the content because it's not my thing. That's not fair to the author. That's not fair to the book. That's not cool of me. So I kind of avoid stuff where I'm I just know I'm not going to like it. And this book in particular, I have been kind of avoiding reviewing because I was it just really doesn't seem like something that I would like. But the reason why I chose it is because when I was okay, I need to just read it and then, or just like go outside of my comfort zone and read it and see if it's good. Because there have been so many times where I was like, nah, I'm not going to read that, or I don't think I'm going to like that. And it has ended up, and I feel like I bring this book up way too much, but it's actually what prompted this whole entire stream thing is when I read Crime and Punishment for the first time. I was like, no, I don't like depressing. I don't like, hardcore literature where it's not very funny, or like, it's like that stuff's not interesting to me. I read for entertainment. So anyways, then I read the book, and of course I was like, okay, this is like one of my favorite books ever. So anyways, I can go out of my comfort zone and still find amazing works. And I feel like this book is actually a pretty good example of that. So anyways, the reason why I chose that is, one, because I was like, let's go out of my comfort zone. And two, the author was like crazy nice. Like she just like was kind of commenting on the other reviews that I had done. And she was like, hey, just wondering when you're going to do mine. And I had been like, okay, well, I will do it eventually, but I was like not looking forward to it. So I kept like pushing it off. Plus it's like 10 hours. It is like a long book. And so I was like, I had to pick it during a time where I knew I was going to have extra time. So I finally am reviewing this book. It's been a whole thing. This is one of the first people who had requested a review, and the Lost Love Fairy seems phenomenal. And I will be getting into why I feel like they're phenomenal a little bit later, in my favorite quotes part of the book, of the review. But anyways, that is actually why I chose this book to review. It is not what I would normally pick out to read for fun for myself, but the author just really seemed so nice, and she had asked so nicely. And so I was like, okay, I gotta read this, right? So without further ado, this is Not My Little Sister. So first impressions, this is what, if you're on Wattpad scrolling and you're thinking about what book you should read next, I checked out the description. It looks interesting. Okay, I'm about to go over the description here. So, a little bit about the author too, is because I always ask the author, what's a little bit about yourself that, because it's fun. It's a fun question. I always love to see the answers on this one. The author said, I try my best to maintain and I say this word in my head a lot, but outside I don't say it a lot. Anonymity. I really hope I didn't say that wrong. I try my best to maintain anonymity. Married female Indian. That's all she said. Love that. Married female Indian. Same married female white. So we already have a lot in common. But anyways, in this book is like an Indian romance. And that's another thing. I don't know a lot about the Indian culture. This had my anonymity is Pacific. I had a friend who said, she would always say Pacific when she meant specific, and I was such a bee. I was like, oh, I thought you were Atlantic, and she just did not think that joke was funny ever. I'm like, just stop saying the word specific if you don't know how. But that was old me back when I was a little bit meaner, I guess. Anyways, so okay, and one thing that she wanted to know specifically about in this review is, I would love to know your thoughts on the transition between part 1 and 2, which I absolutely will be providing that in my review. The town I grew up in is called Chest, and it made my eye twitch. I don't know why. Yeah, I read a lot, and I do talk a lot, but I don't use the words that I read a lot out loud because I don't know how they're pronounced. My favorite example is the word facade. I've read that word a lot. Facade. It's a very common word in writing because a lot of people are explaining like, oh, they dropped their facade, and all of a sudden the villain is revealed. Like you read the word facade more often than you think. I pronounced it in my head as facade. And my husband, one time, we were driving by an Outback, and he was like, oh, look, they're putting up a facade on the building. And I was like, facade? What's that word? And he meant it's just like this. It's not integral to the structure of the building. It's just to make the outside look prettier. So it has like more of a craftsman look to it. And I just remember being like, honestly, I was turned on that my husband knew the word facade and I didn't. So anyways, hey, Jongo, otherwise known as, I'm very happy you're here too. So anyways, sorry to go off on a tangent. That will happen frequently throughout this review. Author, if you were watching, sorry about that. But anyways, so it likes to maintain anonymity. This is the so this is what you are given for the book. So this is everybody should be able to see the screen, see the cover, like the cover. Looks like it was definitely made with AI, and is a lover's embrace over a cityscape. It looks like the Empire State Building in the back for New York. This book is set in the Bronx, so this is probably from that angle, or a part of this book is set in the Bronx. So anyways, I like the cover. Very, very cute, very appropriate for this book, for this style book. It's definitely showing like this is a romance, and the title is Not My Little Sister. And oh my goodness, Not My Little Sister, perfect title, right? Because it is a forbidden romance between the girl and her older brother's best friend, which is such a common topic for these romance books, and we all know why, right? I did not have a brother growing up. I always wished I had an older brother, one, to protect me and make me laugh, and two, to bring his hot friends around. That's why you want an older brother, right? And it's hilarious because I was telling my husband about this book last night, and he was like, oh, that's so funny because I had two of my friends who had a crush on me. Their sisters had a crush on me. I was like, that is so cute. One of them like really asked him to be his Valentine. Whoo, that is adorable. That is so freaking cute. Imagine asking your older brother's friend, would you want to exchange Valentine grams with me? Of course, my husband was like, no, I'm holding out for this future blonde woman I'm going to marry one day. No, he said, no, that's weird. You're like young. He never dated anybody like younger than him, except for when I came along. So brothers aren't all that. Trust me, you don't. I love everybody with brothers is like, no, my best friend has like two older brothers, much older. Like I think the one that's closest in age to her is 6 years older or something. And she was like, it was miserable. They would like sit on me until I felt like I was going to die. And I was like, I don't know. I feel like I would love to have a brother that would sit on me. I saw a post a couple weeks ago that said, you can tell the people who read a lot growing up because they know a lot of big words and say all of them wrong. I saw that too. And I was like, yep, that's absolutely right. Sorry. No, I know exactly what you're talking about. So anyways, that is the story here. I do have a brother. He's 17 years old. So definitely not going to fall in love with any 17-year-old boys. One, illegal. Two, gross. But anyways, that is you get so much from this cover and the title, like, and then the thing says, when you fall in love with your best friend's little sister. So, and then again, it's like, okay, this is from POV from his side. And, I love the trope. It's very common. It's not necessarily unique, but it's like, you got to have more of these, right? It's a very, very exciting thing. A lot of people I'm sure can relate to it. I never got the chance, and as far as I know, none of my friends' brothers were in love with me, but my best friend's brother did take me to prom, and my best friend had to convince me to let him take him to prom. Maybe he had a crush on me. I don't think so, but she did. She was like, will you please take my brother to prom? I really want him to have a good time. And I was like, sure. And I took him to prom, and I regretted it, man. He was awful. He wore a t-shirt that had Jack Daniels on it. I was in my pretty dress. I drove. I paid for everything. And that's not how I like to be treated on my prom. But I digress. That was my best friend. My best friend's brother was cute, but just not it. Anyways, so the summary. We'll get into the summary here. Vinaya Nambiar. And I'm so sorry, by the way, author. if I'm pronouncing any of this wrong. I knew, like, I've only been close with 2 Indian people in my life, both of them men, Ashwin and Priyank. And I'd never met any of their female friends or heard them really speak any Indian words. So anyways, in my head, I pronounced not Vinaya. I pronounced it, but no, I pronounced it Vinaya in my head. Anyways, Vinaya Nambiar, a 22-year-old medical student from India, finds herself thrust into the bustling streets of New York City for a 2-month clinical rotation in pediatrics. With strict Indian parents and a rebellious spirit, Vinaya becomes entangled in a web of conflicting emotions when she stays with her brother's best friend, Nithin Balachandran. Again, sorry if I'm pronouncing any of this wrong. The COO of a startup engineering firm with his own ambitions. The problem? They are undeniably and irresistibly attracted to each other. The problem? They belong to different castes. And again, how is it spelled? Okay, so Vinaya is spelled like this. Did that go through? Now it's asking me to join Twitch. Why isn't it? Okay, hang on. I'm gonna have to go on. It's Vinaya. That's Vinaya. So sorry, I was trying to type it into the chat, and my chat's giving me freaking issues. So, anyways, so that's Vinaya. Nithin is Nithin, and then caste is spelled Castes. So the caste one, I have no idea how that's pronounced. I might be pretty close on Vinaya and Nithin, but caste, I meant to look up like a YouTube to try and pronounce that right because it is super relevant. I don't know about the name, but caste is correct. Thank you. Love that. Love that. Okay, good, because that's how I've been pronouncing it in my head. The problem, he is her brother's best friend. Will they defy the odds and soar to new heights, or will they crash and burn under the weight of societal expectations? Nithin, caste, Vinaya. I missed the first one. Vinaya does not have an H at the end. The caste system in India divides people into social classes based on their family, karma, and past life. Yeah, I learned a lot about the caste system after reading this book, and it is so interesting. And it's like, this book is really good, I feel like, for getting like quick, interesting intro into the Indian like marriage culture. So that was one thing that I really liked about this book. The excerpt from the book is, "You can't hold me like that and not kiss me," whispered Vinaya, her face an inch away from his strong arms wrapped around her small body. "I can't, yeah," he said in his deep voice. Your brother's friendship means too much to me to do this." His mind was a whirlwind of emotions that threatened to cloud his judgment. "More than I do?" she asked, closing the gap between their lips. So that's the summary that we're provided with. The tags are age gap, not something that I am into. I specifically put that I do not like age gap romances in my About Me section. And by the way, highly recommend Cast by Isabel Wilkerson. I'm going to have to look that up because this book had me very curious about about Cast. So anyways, age gap is the very first tag on this. Not a fan, right? I am not into age gap romance. It pisses me off until I was like, okay, wait, what? She did mention the ages here. She's 22 years old. She's a grown woman. She can make her own choices, right? And then it turns out that it's not that big of an age gap. It's 22 and 28. We're talking about people in their 20s. This is not age gap. Age gap is when I see like a young girl, 18, falls in love with her 45-year-old boss who's married. No, I'm not into that. My husband is 5 years older than me. We started dating when I was 19, and I did not think it was weird at all. He thought it was weird. He did not like that he was into a younger girl. He had never dated anybody younger than him before. But, you know, when you meet your soulmate, you just do. I know an Indian girl named Faraya, and her name is pronounced Faria. And then the name Ashwin is pronounced Ashwin, and that's the extent of my Indian name. I've asked my boss's name is Ashwin, and he pronounces it Ashwin. It's actually more about how the U.S. has a caste system similar to India, but by race instead of class. It's a depressing read. Oh, well, I probably don't want to read it. If it's depressing, I don't like depressing stuff. But if it's good, it's good. I don't know. Okay, my big example on that one is Kite Runner. I'm pissed to this day that I read that stupid freaking book. I read it when I was like 16 years old in high school, as like an assignment. I'm so mad about it. I'm so mad about reading that. Not cool. I don't like it. Anyways, hang on. Back to the tags here. Age gap is the first tag. So I was like, oh, I don't want to read that. And then I was like, okay, well, there are two people in their 20s. That's fine. Arranged marriage, brother's best friend, brother's friend, Cochin, Desi, destiny, forbidden love, forced marriage, forced proximity, which is a fun one, height difference, which is another fun one, Indian romance, intercaste, Kerala, Malayali, Nair, New York, rags to riches, romance, roommates, second chance, slow burn, time lapse, Wattpad, India. Desi is Desi. Did I say that wrong? Desi. Excuse me. I love me some forced proximity. Yeah, there's something about it, right? I don't know. These are like, it's like the fantasies that we have in our head. Like guys always have the fantasy that somebody's going to attack them and they're going to need to protect their loved ones. Like they'll sit in class thinking about, oh man, if a gunman came in here, I would just save that girl. You know, like that's their fantasy. And for girls, it's like, what if we were just like forbidden lovers? Or what if we were just like had to be together? And just, could you imagine the tension? Like it's just, we have our different fantasies. And forced proximity, brother's best friend, like these are all them. So we love to read it. It doesn't matter how many times we've read these types of books. We love to read them. Okay. I'm 100% there for that. Like that's the kind of romance that I like. I don't like age gaps. I don't like anything inappropriate. I don't like a lot of spice. Of course, I love Brother's Best Friend. I haven't actually read, I don't think, a Brother's Best Friend before, but I love the idea of it. Especially if they're kids growing up together. Oh, that's one thing that I feel like this book did well. Anyways, lots of good tags, no notes on the tags. So my first impression is I probably wouldn't like this. It's rated mature. It is a age gap romance. It's not necessarily something I would normally like. However, it's a romance. I mean, there's nothing wrong with romance. I love romance. Romance is my favorite part of every single book. Why wouldn't I love a romance? It's because I don't like Wattpad romances so much. Because they always are just so skanky. This one I did not get skank from. It was not, and by skanky, I just mean like, it's just written by a bunch of virgins. It is gratuitous with the smut and unrealistic and makes me uncomfortable. Getting into the okay, I'm going to get into the smut later and feeling uncomfortable. Holy moly, do I have a good one for this one. Anyways, my first impression on this is that you know exactly what you're getting into. I think that it is all very appropriate. I do like the structure of the summary here. I love that summary, by the way. Author, if you're watching this, I'm sure you are, eventually at least. But I do like that. First of all, you're starting with Wattpad romance is built different. Yes, if you are new to Wattpad, start off small. Don't go for a fan fiction romance. It is going to be nasty, okay? It's gonna be heavy, okay? And I made that mistake when I was new to Wattpad, thinking that these books were just like other books. They're not. People are unleashing themselves on these books, so be careful. Okay, anyways, I love the summary. It is short, it's sweet, it's to the point, it's engaging. I love the summary. And I also like the tag. So again, this was all of these. If I have anything negative to say about any of this, it is only because of my personal preference. It has nothing to do with, if you are looking for a steamy age gap kind of like, oh, hi, Vane Baby. So happy to have you always. You are so true. You're true blue. appreciate you always being here. So anyways, I like it all. I like the cover. I like the summary. I like the tags. It is great. Again, it is not my taste. The steamy romance vibe I'm getting from this, and the age gap being the first tag. And again, these are in alphabetical order, so you cannot help what your first tag is, just because I don't think, in looking back, I don't think that age gap is a good first tag for this, like good tag for this, because the age gap is so small. It is, I mean, it's 6 years, which can be a lot depending on what, like if there's an age gap where you're at, but this is a 22-year-old and a 28-year-old when they first meet, but when the romance strikes, and it's nothing inappropriate before that. There's no romance whatsoever or connection like that whatsoever. So that is something I feel like this book did right, as far as age appropriateness and my judgmental opinion apparently, but I really liked that. So no constructive criticisms on the title, on the cover, on the summary, or the tags. Lovely. I think it was very appropriate for the book. I think that you will definitely catch certain readers with that information that you have. And by the way, this book has caught plenty of reader. It has 68,000 reads, or almost 5,000 votes, and it is an 11-hour long book. I don't know how you can get 68,000 reads. That's insane. Like, and I know that this author in particular has like submitted to every single like review shop and awards thing that is offered on Wattpad. I don't know, like probably part of some book clubs or whatever. 68,000, you don't get 68,000 reads just from that. So they really must have good content, and like 68,000 is a lot for Wattpad. Like if you see that, you're like, oh, people liked this book. This book probably won an award at some point, and people specifically sought out this book because they saw it as an award on something, or yeah. So anyways, nicely done, author, on your amazing read, or amazing number of reads. There's 63 parts, again, 11 hours, which was a huge reason why I was like, I think I'm going to put this one off because that is freaking long. That's going to take me like for reading all my other books and then trying to write my own book and being a mom and working. That's a lot, right? So 11 hours, man, that's a long book. But I did read it, and it was pretty good. So anyways, that's where we're at. That's my first impressions of the book. So good job. Character/plot summary right now. The main characters, I would say Vinaya might be a little bit more of the main character. She, the female love interest, she is a 22-year-old woman in med school. She's like becoming a doctor, so all of that like postgraduate stuff, like getting your residency, and they said all the words in the book, fellowship, stuff like that. She's going through all that, so she's like a young doctor, and has a very like obstinate personality, which to me, I thought that was a really nice conflict, because she comes from a very traditional household that kind of wants to like squash her fire. Her mom drove me insane. So I feel like as far as main characters goes, we love a strong female lead, as long as they're not annoying. I didn't find Vinaya terribly likable. However, she definitely grew on me as the story went on. But I wasn't like her biggest fan. Nithin was the 28-year-old love interest, the brother's best friend, COO of his own company, which was a speech-to-text software, which the author made it sound really cool, as far as like using it in the medical field, and coming from the medical field, not as like a medical professional, but as like a administrative professional in the medical field, I can see how much that this would help. I know that doctors use speech to text to dictate a lot of their notes. It's amazing when you're in the appointment, and when you're walking out the door, that you get like a notification that the notes from your appointment are already drafted. It's a huge burden off of doctors, and there was even implications that it helped some kids with autism. So anyways, it sounds like a very cool software, and the author actually made it important to the plot, and used it to like bond the medical representative, the female, and the guy with this amazing software. It was like this cool, like, well, we're not just romantic. We can also be and friend. It's like friendship and partners. Like I feel like that's a really good relationship. I personally help my husband with his work stuff all the time. He helps me with my work stuff all the time. That is what a good relationship, I feel like, does. Where you're just supporting each other, helping each other out. So I thought that was really cool. And again, so sorry if I'm pronouncing any of this wrong. Mohan, the brother. He is the brother, right? Nithin's best friend and Vinaya's brother. He is Nithin's age. He's very protective, very wise, very kind, completely awesome, understanding. The whole family looks up to him. He just loves Vinaya so much. And to me, in my opinion, he's like the dream older brother. So I really liked him. Mohan. Thank you, Mohan. Okay. So then that's how I pronounced it in my head. So I'm very proud of myself. My noggin's pretty good at pronunciations. So, that's Mohan, and he's great and he's successful, and he just seems very like, grounded, very practical. He doesn't have to choose between his culture and his wants, although he does. But he's very responsible. So I liked him. I liked the brother a lot. So basically what happens, as you can expect, they are in the forced proximity. We love it. The pronunciations, you're like, well, you're pronouncing, I said pronunciation, didn't I? Pronunciation, excuse me. You know what's funny is I said pronunciation last week, and I was like, I heard it as soon as it exited my mouth, but I was like, okay, I'm talking still, so I can't go back. Pronunciation. I'm gonna mess that up again. Sorry, guys. Anyways, so Vinaya needs to complete like 2 months so she's moving from India to New York for like 2 months, in order to complete her like pediatric residency or something. So she's going to New York to do that. And her brother is like, okay, you're gonna stay with my best friend Nithin, who lives there, and he is going to look after you. He's basically going to make sure that you're safe and you can stay in his apartment. And so she looks him up on Instagram, and she's like, I don't need anybody to look after me. And then she looks him up on Instagram. She's like, oh, Nathan's fine. She's like, he's all tall. He's a whopping 6 feet tall, which is so funny because I've read so many books where they're like, whoa, he was 6 feet tall. He must be huge. I'm like, I have a massive cow of a husband who lives in my that is 6 feet tall too. And it's funny in our part of the world. I just feel like my husband thinks he's like short because all of his coworkers and friends are like 6'3", 6'4". Like if you go into our office, it's like I feel like a very, very short person, and when I'm around these people, they're so freaking tall. But anyways, he's a giant in India, and he's got this like man bun and this beard, and he's all buff and strong. And so she's like, dang, I'm going to be living with this guy. I don't eat any, and sees the hustle. You can't send me alone. I need someone to look after me. Exactly. She's like kind of like building it up in her head a little bit. Plus he's like the COO of his own company. So she's like very, very excited. And so she kind of builds it up in her head a little bit. And this was one detail that I freaking loved about this book. So she's like, oh, this is going to be like this fancy New York experience where I get to stay in this penthouse like in Gossip Girl. And she was picturing something from 50 Shades of Grey, which I haven't seen and I haven't read, as you probably could have guessed. But I was like, oh my gosh, I love that she's picturing that. I would too, especially for Wattpad. This stuff runs rampant in Wattpad. He shows up to pick her up from the airport, this very nice man, and she like gets into a secondhand Subaru. Like she's like, where's the limousine? Like she just thinking these things, but like she's like, what? Like he's the COO of his own like engineering company, like, and he's picking me up in this secondhand Subaru or Subaru Outback or something like that. And so she's like, that's a little bit weird. Anyways, so then they get to the apartment. And again, she's expecting this like penthouse thing, like super, super fancy. And it's not. And he has like a futon that she's going to be able to sleep on. And, you know, it's a small apartment. And it's really, she's like, the walls were dingy. Like she's walking in and she's like, what the heck? Like, this isn't what I was expecting. And then she goes to use like the bathroom and there's a cockroach in the bathroom. She freaks out. And it's funny because the cockroach thing, like that like sparked everything, like her being afraid of the cockroaches. But I just loved the like the complete, like not what I was expecting. I loved it. I loved that part. It was so, so cute. Yeah. Ick roaches. I have seen one cockroach in real life, in my entire life. I hope I never see one again. They really are absolutely vile, disgusting. I'm so glad I live in a part of the world that doesn't have them a lot. And when I've traveled to New York, I've never seen them there either. I have seen rats, but in New York. I haven't seen a lot of rats in, like, anyways. Yes, I'm very, very lucky. It's great living in this part of the world. So, anyways, so she's like, and then, so he's sitting there like, why is she like acting so disappointed when she sees everything? Like, what the heck was she expecting? And she's just sitting there like, okay, I'm still very grateful, like, to have this, like, place to live that's safe, and this person who's going to be looking after me, although Miss Independent feels like she doesn't need no man, and she's been sheltered her entire life and kind of treated like a second-class citizen who shouldn't, or who needs somebody to take care of her. Even though she's intelligent enough to become a doctor, she's just still treated like a child. And I feel like that, and as one of my only introductions to Indian culture, it kind of seemed like that's just how the culture is, at least in this world. So I don't, forgive me if any of this stuff is like, that's not how it is in India. Keep in mind that I've not experienced a lot of exposure. I've had online friends who were Indian. We never talked about this. But anyways, that's kind of what we're doing. I resent the fact that cockroaches will outlive us. Yes, they will. It's always been, what is it? It's always been the age of the cephalopod. It can't be cephalopod. That's like octopuses, but they have been with us since before the dinosaurs, and they will never leave. Thank you. Anyways, so she moves into this apartment, with this hottie who is broke because he's got a startup business that he's been saving up for, and he's trying to turn into something real. I wish it were the age of the cephalopods. I know. The octopus, actually, fun fact about me, it's my favorite animal. I can list off about 10 billion facts about octopuses. And if you're wondering why is she saying octopuses and not octopi, because it is octopuses. Look it up. It's not octopi. Okay? Don't correct me on that one. Cuttlefish for me. Also adorable. Very cute. Love the flashing. Love it all. I also, if you're wondering, because I know that you're asking this in your heads and then you're thinking like, oh, okay, I'm not bold or brave enough to ask Missy this question. My next favorite animals are the otter and the elephant. So octopus, otter, elephant, the bomb. I love them. I love their energy. I love their whole vibe. It's a thing. If I was an animal, I would probably be an otter. Just personality wise, spunk wise, I just feel like that's me, if you're wondering. Anyways, so Vinaya moves in with this guy, hot, broke, determined. She has all of these memories from when they were kids and they spent a lot of time together. So she has all these memories of when they were spending time together. He was very kind to her. She had a lisp. She was not treated very well by her mom. Just in not like an abusive, anything crazy way, just like a typical mean mom who would just like say mean things and then also hug her. And my goodness, I hope that I'm not like that to my daughter. Like yeah. Anyways, so he's just very comforting in a very brotherly way in her younger years. So she has all these great memories of him being sweet to her and taking care of her and really treating her like a brother. The opening, I loved this in the opening. So she's like, oh my gosh, this hot guy. And then she like does like a flashback to when she was a kid, and it's where she's making pretend food for her brother and Nithin, his best friend. And they're like pretending to eat it. And they're like, thank you. This is so good. And they're like playing pretend with her. And it's like, oh, that's so cute. Like, that's adorable. And they're not saying like, oh, get out of here, you pesky little sister. We're in the middle of doing our guy stuff or whatever. They're just like playing with her. And I just think that was a really strong opening. I absolutely loved that opening. I was very excited when I think it was like the first 2 chapters where I was like, okay, so we have this kind of intriguing situation happening. It like jumps right into it, where she finds out she's going to be moving to New York and having to stay with this guy. Then she looks him up and he's hot. Then she remembers how sweet he was when he was a kid. I'm already sold, right? And then to top it all off, you do a little switcheroo where we're expecting Mr. Hotso with his fancy cars, fancy apartment, very New York lifestyle. And it's this, not a dump, but I would imagine it's probably really expensive for New York and the Bronx. So I've been to the Bronx like twice, and I remember it being very nice, but I went there only for pizza. And Italian candy. So I went to like the Italian neighborhood and got the pizza and I got the candy and something called chocolate root beer, which tastes like you would expect it. My husband was into it. I was not. Anyways, the Bronx, Jenny wasn't there. I'm not sure, but she's there. I am already probably more true to the New York lifestyle for the average person. Exactly. And I've seen video like, yeah, I feel like New York is a nice place to visit, not nice place to live. I would not like that. I would not like, it just seems so inconvenient. Anyways, so great, strong start. I absolutely loved the start of this book. I really, really like that. So that's so then of course we get into the romance. Everything is as you would expect. Okay. The chemistry, right? However, this is where I actually have some constructive feedback. There is in my opinion, there was a total lack of chemistry between the main character or between the main characters. I was not getting it at all. It was so like up and down. It was like she was getting, because she's like this, the main character, Vinaya is this, because I keep calling her the main character. They're both the main character. You read from both of their POVs. Oh, by the way, there was definitely no AI, I don't think, used in this. She said she used it to edit or whatever. She had specifically said that. But I was not suspicious of AI at all. The plot was exactly what you'd expect at the level with the writing. There were few grammatical errors and a lot of like extra words that didn't need to be there, or missed words or missed spellings and stuff like that. So I love that. At this point, I love that because it just means AI was not used, you know? So anyways, the chemistry I feel like was really, really lacking in the first half of this story. For me, I thought that it was lacking. They are very much, the 2 main characters are very much like hot and cold, so much hot and cold. And it's like really hot and then really cold. And it's like they're arguing or they're cold towards each other. And they're arguing about stupid stuff. And then they are like burning with lust for each other in the next scene, just from like looking at each other. And I don't know if the intention was for the characters to be like, oh, that, you know, the kind of like they've met their match type of style. I'm not sure what the idea was there. But so that's, I'm not sure what the idea was there to play it like that. If I were to create this, you know, forced proximity, forbidden romance type of story, I feel like the big draw there is the slow burn is one of the tags here, although I do not feel like it was a slow burn. Because again, it was like you kind of jump right into it, and then you kind of jump right into the romance aspect of it too. Like Nithin sees her and he's like picturing her naked like right away. And so I was like, oh, you know, like, you're not gonna be cute about this at all. You're just gonna be like, damn, like that, she fine. Like Nithin was the least likable character, I feel like, in this book. I was not his biggest fan. I did not think he was very likable because of the way that he thought about Vinaya, and the way that he thought, the things he was thinking. And then he was kind of like, when he did talk, I forgot. There is so little dialogue in like the first several chapters between the two. And so you're thinking like, why are they like thinking these things? They haven't even spoken. Like there isn't any dialogue from like when he picks her up from the airport to the to getting into the apartment to them making meals together. They're not like talking at all. And so that was one thing where it was like, okay, that needs to be fixed, because like I'm not buying them as a couple together whatsoever because of that. Like that, I thought I didn't understand the connection between them. I thought that there was no chemistry there for forever. I feel like the whole point of having these forbidden romances is dangling the carrot. Like you're feeling your intensity of like your attraction to the person like grow, right? Slowly. And then it's happening slowly because you're resisting. You're saying like, I don't want to be into this person, but man, they just did this nice thing, or dang, they just look real hot coming right out of the shower, or oh, he just pronounced that word correctly and I'm going to make babies with him if you're me. So you need to I feel like that's where you should be going, is like slow and steady. And that's like the forbidden. You need to dangle the carrot. The reader will follow. The reader knows that this is going to turn into a romance. It's very clear by everything that has happened that you're presented with that is where this is going. Even if you didn't see the cover or the name of the title or the summary or the tags, you would know where this is going based off of the prologue, right? Forced proximity, my brother's best friend. Look him up on Insta. He's a hottie. Like, you know that's where it's going. So you can take your time getting to that point, right? Because we're going to be all for it when it happens. We are waiting. We're ready to pounce. The longer, and I'm not saying you need to wait forever, but we know it's coming, and that's what we're here for. We're going to keep reading until we start getting more and more and more. And I feel like it's like, instead of going like slow and steady, it was kind of more like like, it was not that's what I was getting from the way that this was written. And it made me feel like, okay, they don't have a lot of chemistry. Also, I feel like there was a huge lack of character development early on in the story. There are a lot of things that allow us to be sympathetic towards Vinaya. So she grew up with a speech impediment, and she was bullied about it. Her mom teased her about it, and she worked really, really hard to not have this speech impediment, which was a lisp. And it would act up when she was upset and stuff. So she has like kind of this background of being a little bit teased, being kind of talked down to by her mom. So she's more of a sympathetic character. Nithin, you don't really get a lot about his background at all, other than he's very determined to have this. This company that he's creating turn into a success to, make his family proud, and because he believes in it and he really thinks it can be something. That's a good thing. I didn't get much from his personality. Basically, like, the second half, in my opinion, is like so much better than the first half of this book. I really liked the second half. Just spoiler alert. But anyway, so I would have really, really liked more character development on both of these characters, but specifically Nithin, because I still, to this point, am not like his biggest fan, right? Even after finishing the book, I'm like, I don't like the way he thought about Vinaya. I don't like the way he treated her. Like, there were so many things that I didn't like because, you're establishing conflict in the story. So you need them to have like something about him needs to be unlikable. He can't be Mr. Perfect. But I feel like there was not very much that I was like, I am like bought into this character, and we're seeing things from his POV, and I was not a fan of the way that he thought, of the things that drove him. So sorry, I'm trying to figure out this I'm trying to figure out my chat box because it's like, I think I'm going to do that. There we go. Sorry. Anyways, no, it's right in my face. I mean, not that you guys need to see my face, but I'm trying to get it so I just have a white bed. Oh, this way. A white bed so you are like you're not able to read the stuff, but I'll just, hang on. Bear with me here. I'm going to fix this up a bit. That's not helping. I'm going back to this. Sorry. Anyways, so, yes, lack of chemistry between the main characters, and I think this would be much easier if you were goth. I know. I should just have one of those goth backgrounds. Instead, I have white accents everywhere. Love my white accents because I feel like they make colors pop better. And the rest, it's gray in here. So, speaking of, thinking about painting my room blue. Not this color, but like a historical Benjamin Franklin style blue, if you know what I'm talking about. Opinions, thoughts? I don't know. I'm not good at that kind of thing. I'm not very good at interior decorating, but I do really like blues and greens. So anyways, back to the story. I feel like the carrot could have been dangled a lot longer on their relationship, and that could have been an opportunity to establish more of a help us to fall in love with the characters before they fall in love with each other, which I thought would have been smart. So I was not expecting that. We just really need to build the tension and the chemistry in the second chapter so much better. We get into Nathan's POV, and the attraction seems like really abrupt. He's like, again, like I said, and it's not in like a love at first sight sort of way. Like, oh, like my parents, when my dad said that he met my mom, he was like, it was like, I saw an angel, like she was like glowing. And when I saw my husband, I remember it was like time slowed down, you know. It's like, that's like, for me, that's love at first sight. Although I did already know my husband, but it was like the second time I saw him, I didn't recognize that I knew him. The Ben Franklin blue would be pretty. Okay, well, we got to do that. Anyways, but this is like more, so this love story is kind of like the way that they're attracted to each other is more of like a teenage proximity way, where they're like, this guy's just popping boners left and right every time he sees her. So like that's kind of what I was getting, which I just feel like this author can do better based on some of the other things that are included in this book. Like they clearly have like a good vision for the book. I just feel like the tension and the buildup and the chemistry between the main characters and the character development is severely lacking in the very first part of this book. So we have the hang on just a second. No. Okay. So when I was reading this, I was like, is this like an enemies to lovers thing? Because they're like fighting constantly, the main character or the love interest, and enemies to lovers was not listed as one of the tags, and I didn't feel like that was like the trope they were going for, but they argue so much, and he's like letting this girl that he doesn't know very well, like, or hasn't seen in years and years and years, just because he's his friend's brother or his friend's sister, stay with him, and she's not acting terribly grateful. She's complaining a lot, which is just, I feel like, so that was another thing for me where I was like, I like hard for me to wrap around her character, as like, is she nice? Is she ungrateful? Is she, more kind of like snotty or spoiled bratty? Like I was hard for me to wrap my head around like who Vinaya was as a person, and everything that Nathan said was frustrating. Like he was like, I don't know. He's not a very good communicator in this book. I mean, that's made clear a bunch of times. He's not a good communicator, but anyways, the lack of character development, I thought could really be improved in the beginning. There are spelling errors and added or missing words. And again, I don't know if they're doing an enemies to lovers thing. I feel like it was kind of like I said before, where it was like they're arguing a lot. But I don't know why they're arguing a lot, other than Vinaya is just like a difficult personality, but that makes her not as likable if she's just being difficult to the guy who is inviting her into his home and feeding her and looking out for her. And she just is like wanting her independence, but she's still listens to him. Like, she's still like a good girl. So there's a lot where I'm like, okay, what is going on here? I'm not quite sure. And she's only there for 2 months in that house. So within that 2 months, a lot happens. Of course, they fall in love, or they, the sexual tension is very, the sexual tension is a big, like the main plot point. I feel like in the very first chapters, there's not like a lot of like, oh, I thought he was like a really good person, or he was funny, or he seemed so responsible. It was just like, look at those broad shoulders, look at those big hands. Like, there was not a lot of foundation to build on. So that was my biggest thing in the very first chapters. And then in chapter 5, Vinaya's inner monologue, or in her inner thoughts, say something so insane that I was like, what is happening? So she's like attracted to Nithin, right? And he's attracted to her, and they're like, oh, you're so hot, blah blah blah, but not saying any of this, but they are too. Like, they're kind of like open about it, and then also not talking about it, like pretending like they didn't say anything type of stuff. And then in chapter 5, she said, he's like saying, he like was looking at her a certain way, and she gets really nervous and scared. And she said, I couldn't fight him off if he tried something. Meaning, like, she was scared that he was going to like abuse her for a moment, like in her head. And then her next thought is something a lot along the lines of like, well, maybe I wouldn't want him to. And it's like, no, those are two different vibes. Like, I know that there is a lot of like strong male characters who it's like, oh, he could like fight off an army for me, and he's just so rugged and manly, and that. But I feel like also being nervous that they're going to try something without your consent that's not sexy. I don't think that that's sexy. And that threw me for a loop, because I was like, ooh, that's a totally different vibe than what I was thinking was going on here. Like, is she nervous that he's going to try something, or does she want him to try something? Like, those two for me are like opposite sides of the spectrum. And and I know that a lot of people are like, oh, I just want somebody who's going to be like a little bit rough with me. Like, that is a huge turn on for certain people, and they're super into that. And there's a lot of Wattpad about it. But when the fear that she has, is not sexy, that's not like a sub-dom type of relationship. That is a girl run. Like, if you actually think that and you're feeling uncomfortable, even though he didn't do anything, and he would never, like, I don't think he would ever or anything like that. He was definitely not saying that, but she had this fear. I would say that sentence, that thought needs to be removed from this story. It was so not on par with the rest of the entire book, and I feel like it should be removed, because for me, I was really thrown by that sentence. I was not a fan. Also, the characters are like a lot of, so Nithin and his friends are like 28 and are like nearly 30. Oh, thank you, Ellen, for agreeing with me on that. I'm just like, I totally understand like the like dominating type of personality and how certain people would be super, super into that. And it's not like I don't completely get it, but there is a difference between like being like aggressive with somebody who like wants them to be aggressive, and somebody who is doing something that the other person does not want. And that's not sexy. Yeah, there's an, ooh, he could throw me around, wink, vibe, which is good, but he could assault me and I couldn't stop him is, yeah, not sexy. The difference is consent. The difference is the vibe. And, I feel like that's, I mean, not to get into like too heavy of a topic here, but the amount of guys who misread that vibe is staggering. There are so little guys who identify themselves as having sexually assaulted a woman, who this woman would definitely say, no, I would not have done that if I felt like I was in a safe space where I could have easily said no and left, or we could have done something different. I feel like that's a huge difference. Like, even if they're like, oh no, like she was good. It's like, I didn't do anything she didn't want to do. I just really, really pressured her into it and made her feel uncomfortable. Like, there's like, come on, like let's live in the real world. That stuff happens, and it's not sexy, and it makes you sick to your stomach afterward. So not for the guy, for the girl. So anyways, the Nithin is 28 years old. His friends are 28 years old. So they're nearing on 30. These are grown adults. They play a lot of drinking games, which I know that there are plenty of people in their 20s, 30s, 40s that play drinking games, but the drinking games are like strip poker and truth or dare. Like, they're pretty, oh, thank you for that recommendation, Ellen. I can see you read a lot of heavy stuff. But anyways, so the characters are in their 30s playing these like kind of like, I'm not saying that characters, but people who are closing in on their 30s, or they're coming up, they're late 20s, okay? And they're playing drinking games, which I think is normal. I know a lot of 28-year-olds who would play drinking games. I don't think that that's weird. I think that the strip poker with just friends, and there's like one girl in the entire group and they're playing strip poker, and truth or dare, like, to me, that's very high school. But that could be just because I haven't lived in that world since high school. So that could be me. But anyways, I don't know if that was immature or if it was just like, no, 28-year-olds do that. So I don't know. And give me Discord emojis Twitch. I have no idea how. Is that something that I can do? I don't know. Oh, you're telling Twitch to give you Discord emojis. Okay. Yes. I'm sorry. I don't know how. Anyway, so there was like a lot of like things in this book where I was like I kept like buying into it because of certain things, and then buying out because of other things that were happening. And that, again, and I added this as my disclaimer, could be because of my personal preferences. So this might be stuff that people really like to read about, but it just kind of took me away from the characters, took me away from the story, being like, oh, if I was in this room, which in my mind I'm in this room, I would not like this. I would be roasting these people for being so freaking stupid. I would be, calling people out for being inappropriate or whatever. Like, there were certain things where I was like, no, like, I'm not bought into this. So that's kind of what kept happening. And then I realized that this happened throughout the story, where it was like there would be paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs, no dialogue. Then it would be like just dialogue forever. So I feel like there was a little bit of a lack of setting the scene. So if you're talking in a crowded room and like there's a bunch of people around, I want to know, like, can people overhear you? Is it loud in the room so nobody can overhear you? Is everybody staring at you? Because there were certain scenes where I was like, is everybody looking at the main character and the main character's talking right now? Or are they like kind of having like a sideline conversation? Like, there was a lot of that. So there was several times where I wish that it was like kind of slowed down a little bit and I knew where I was. Like, are my feet on the ground? I'm in the room. And now we're having this conversation. There were several times where I was like, wait, where are we? There was even a part like later, like on a hike. And then all of a sudden they're getting into like a smut scene. And I was like, wait, I thought they were outdoors. Like, is this like an outdoors thing, or they're back at the apartment? Like, what's happening? So anyways, I feel like there was there was definitely lacking in setting the scene. Now we get into, okay. That's the first half of the book. And she had specifically asked in her notes, like, I really want to know about the, this is what she said. I would love to know your thoughts on the transition between part 1 and part 2. Now, I'm going to do spoilers here. There is so basically what happens is they fall in love and they beat the odds. And so they're not in the same cast. And so Nathan had said like a few times, like, I will not marry anybody outside of my personal cast, because he is part of the, I forget what it's called, but it's like the head cast. And I don't know if it ever says what type of cast that she is from. But he's like, I won't ever do that to my family, because my family was heartbroken when my sister did that with her husband. And it was like devastating for my family. So I would never go against them. I would never go against them and break their heart again and marry somebody outside of my own cast. So I'm only going to marry somebody from like the head cast, because I forget the name of it. It's like Bohemian, something like. I need to look it up, but basically it's like the thinkers, the wise people, like the philosophers, though that is the cast that he's from, and he doesn't want to marry a woman outside of that cast. So they're like, she's like, okay, well, you know, do you want to just make it a casual thing? And he's like, well, no, I'm going to marry you. Like he's like, I'm in love with you and I want to be with you and we'll figure it out. You know, I'm sure that there's a way that I can make it happen. Now they're fully in a relationship at this point. Now the brother comes, Brahmin. Thank you, Ellen. Gosh, you're awesome at this. So anyways, then the brother shows up to the apartment and they decide, we're going to tell my brother about our relationship. And the brother was like, this is about halfway through the book, shows up and he realizes what's happening. And he was like, oh, not my little sister. Title of the book. I love that part. I love the name drops on the book titles there. So Mohan shows up and is like, not my little sister, punches him in the face. And he's like, get away from my sister, takes Vinaya away from the apartment, packs up all her things. And he's basically like, you can't support her. You're just going to dump her. You're just lonely. Like, he's very protective of his sister. It's not like the traditional, like, I'm protective. This is my pure little sister. I can't even bear the thought of her having sex. It's like Mohan's thinking like, no, you, Nathan, specifically, are not thinking this through. You are just going to break her heart. You're taking advantage of her. You guys can't get married because you said yourself several times, and they're best friends. He's like, you'll never marry somebody out of your own caste. And disclaimer, my best friend is from South India, Malaysia. I believe there are major cultural differences in pronunciation differences between South and North India. I could be getting all these wrong. Well, I know that in India too, they speak a bunch of different languages. Like in that country, they do not all speak the same language. That's another thing. I have made a friend on Wattpad and he was telling me that. It's like, there's like hundreds of languages spoken in India and they do not all speak. It is not the same. Like, I can't imagine having to talk to like another person who lives in the US that doesn't speak English. Honestly, I can't imagine going anywhere and there's people not speaking English, but that's because it's English. Hema speaks 4 fluently and she's learning Portuguese just for fun. Do other people just make you feel so stupid? Hema, excuse me. Well, anyways, so the brother's like, no freaking way. You're not going to be with my sister. She's my responsibility. I'm supposed to be you. I trusted you to take care of her while she was in New York. Meanwhile, you guys have been just freaking messing around this whole time. And she's a good girl. And you took advantage of her, first of all, not knowing what she's doing and the fact that she's younger. And you were supposed to be like looking after her and you've got this stupid startup company that, she needs somebody who's going to support her. She's trying to become a doctor. What the heck? She's supposed to be like traveling around. What are you going to do while she's traveling around? You need to quit your job and get a real job. And then we can talk about you marrying my sister. And because he's like, I'm going to marry you. And this is, again, within 2 months. Love a quick romance, by the way. You fall hard when you know, you know. That's I feel that way. Like when you know, you know. Anyways, and I'm not saying that when you know every single time. I'm just saying that is something that happens to people. So, and I've heard it so many times, and it's my own personal experience, and that's what's happening with Nithin and Vinaya. Anyways, so he Mohan is like, you need to choose between me, or you need to choose between my sister and your company. Because if you want to be with my sister, you need to have a real job that can support her, and you're not going to be poor. And so Nithin is like shocked and offended, because his best friend has always been so supportive, including investing his own money, has been so supportive of his business, his his speech to text business. And he was really upset because he's like, you don't believe in my company? Like, you don't think that this is going to turn into something that I'll be able to support your sister on eventually? And Mohan's like, he basically says like, no, you're a loser. Your company is a loser. It's a joke. Like and so Nithin is heartbroken that that he feels like Mohan and Vinaya don't believe in the company, making him choose between Vinaya and the company. You know what he chooses? He basically says, no, both. I'm going to choose both. And he said, he tells Vinaya, wait for me. I'm going to choose my company. Wait for me. I'll turn this into something, and then I'll marry you, basically. Good for him, honestly. Yeah. He's like, his whole thing is like, I shouldn't have had to choose. Like, I should not have had to choose between this thing I've been working toward my entire adult life. I believe in this company. This is how I'm going to be able to provide for Vinaya. So anyways, that's, Bitcoin has been looking up lately. Don't do it. So anyways, that is where and so Vinaya's heart is broken because she feels like he chose his company over her. She would never have made him choose. That was not her thing. Meanwhile, Mohan is convincing her like, he did not love you. He was lonely. He chose his company over you. He also, he did this with another girl one time, even. Like, there's this other girl that he said he was in love with, and he wanted to marry, and then he brought it up to his parents, and his parents said no, and he dumped her and kicked her out of the house. Like, he did this exact same thing with a different girl before, which you find out later is not true, but of course Vinaya doesn't think that. So anyways, that is what happens. And so that's where we end on that's the first part. They meet, they fall in love, the brother finds out, and they split up. It's basically saying, like, you're not going to marry somebody in a different caste than you because your parents say no, and you're not going to break their heart again, as you've said multiple times. And then secondly, you don't have a good enough job to support my sister, loser. Get it together. And then so we're ending on Nithin saying basically, like, wait for me, I'll make this work, and I will be able to take care of you one day, and then we'll get married because you're it for me, And then, it's so frustrating, frustrating in a good way, okay? So then Mohan, so Vinaya is like still getting her doctor stuff figured out. Pretty sure she goes back to India, then she moves to Texas, and it's been 4 years. So that's the break between part 1 and part 2, which by the way is not clearly stated, I don't think, anywhere in the book, is like, wait. Okay. Before I leave part 1, I have to address the smut. Okay, so one of the reasons why I did not want to read this book was because I thought it was going to be super smutty. It's not. I do not think that this book is super smutty at all. I think it's very, very light smut. Perfectly fine for someone at my level. I did skip the parts where I was like, okay, the smut's leveled here, and then I skipped it, which was nice. And then the author provided a summary for anything relevant that was missed, for those people who skipped the smut, which I thought was awesome, by the way. There is a part of the smut that makes me wildly uncomfortable. I love authors who do that. I know. Light smuttering, yes. No, the author, as far as smut goes, I think was great because she made it, it was not like super, super spicy as far as spice level was. And she kept she had lots of notes to like the readers at the end of her book where she was like, what do you think about the spice? Like, what's the level here? Or like, is it like out of 5 chilies, like, is it like a 2 or a 3? And I would say, yeah, it was like probably like a 2. I don't think it was very, very hot. But again, I did skip the ones where it was like, oh, here it is. I just completely blasted past that. Two funny things regarding the smut, though. And if you are a minor, please cover your ears. But there is this one part in their very first like sexual encounter, and they don't actually have sex until way, way later in the book. Like, so it's very much like teenager style smut or whatever. And it is so, oh, it's so funny because so they are making out, right? And she's like, oh, I don't want to have sex. And he's like, oh, okay, that's fine. Just close your eyes. And then he just jacks off on top of her. And I was like, did that just happen? What the heck? How do I get that out of my brain? Like, oh my gosh. And it's supposed to be like this sexy scene. And so I was like, okay, there's a comment on here. I have to read what this commenter said. Who was brave enough to comment on this part where I like reread it several times where I was like, wait, back up. Like, what just happened? What just happened? So many times I was like, no, that's not what I think it is. He did not just do that. And I looked at the comment, and the comment was like, oh, that's so nice because then he gets what she wants or what he wants, and then she remains pure. And I was sitting there like, I would have ran out of that room. I would never make eye contact with that man again. I would have told every girl what I know, and I would go insane if somebody did that to me. And he like does it into like a condom or something. So it's not like he goes all over her or something. Babes, that is not how it works. Yeah. I was like, so this is the smut in this book. Oh, okay. So that is, that's what happens. So if you plan on reading this book, just know that there's going to be weird stuff like that. Like, and it's so funny too, because it's like, you know, that I'm sure that kind of thing happens in real life. And I feel like I have only seen that. I saw it in a comedy one time where this like woman gets divorced and she goes on like her first date and it's going so well. And then the guy does that and she's like, oh my gosh, did that seriously just happen? Pure of body, but no longer of mind. Never forgetting that. Seriously, what the heck? I was like so thrown. And again, I read that part several times and I was like, dude, get away from him. That is not hot. That is so freaking weird. So, yeah. So that's one thing that happens. Another thing that happens, which I thought was really, I burst out laughing, was just, you know, they're moving along in their relationship. This is much, much later in the book. And, so she's like, I'm going to treat you to something. And for the first time ever, sorry. I don't know how to at least ask, don't say close your eyes. No, it was like a sultry, like, close your eyes. I'm about to take care of myself then. Anyways, so so she does that for him. And then immediately it was like later does something for him, as you can just let your imagine wander. I don't know why I'm being so immature about this. She goes down on him. He goes and then she goes and like spits into the bathroom. Like she's like, oh, and then spits into the bathroom, brushes her teeth, brushes her tongue. And he was like, he's sitting there like, what happened? And she's like, I didn't know that's what happened. That was so anyways, she's not into swallowing, which is another fun little detail. Like it was like, and this stuff was not written as a comedy. It's just written as like, same though. Isn't she a doctor? Oh, exactly. No, I think she like wasn't like, she was like, I don't like that. Good point, Jono. No, she is a doctor. I'm assuming she knew what was going to happen. I think she wasn't expecting I think she wasn't expecting it. You know, reading about it's totally different than the experience. To be mildly vulgar, I have been told that if it was at least chilled, it would be fine. Put it on the rocks. It's great. Oh my gosh. I'm a man though, so I shall shut up now. Oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't think it's that bad. Jeez Louise. And this book was kind of funny with that sort of thing. So as far as smut goes, I am literally cackling out loud at the put it on the rocks. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it'd be fine if it was chilled. I don't think anybody's saving that later to put in the fridge as a treat. I think that is not the point. But anyways, so the spice was the parts that I read that were spicy really were like not hot to me. But again, that's not my thing. So somebody else might be reading that and be like, oh my gosh, tell me more. And I'm sitting there like, no, like, please girl, like, it could be your life. I have so many tips for you. Like, it could be so much better. Just, raise your expectation. And by the way, this is a girl who reads smut. So the character reads smut. Another hilarious thing, I'm going to break to talk about one of my favorite quotes in this book. And this is from the author to the reader. This is not actually a quote from the book. This is just what she said. First of all, one of the things that she had said earlier in the chapter was she said, I'm going to make my husband read some smut to give him some bold hints. What do you guys have any recommendations? So she said that the author, who I am just beginning to adore this author because of this stuff. So she put that in her little comment. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna tell my husband about this stuff. Anyways, so then she writes like a smutty chapter. And I skipped the smut or whatever, but I did read the author's note at the end. And she said, I made my hubby read this chapter. I could see some smut that she had written. And she said, I could see all the emotion that ran through him right then. The tips of his ears turned brick red. I don't think he's going to look at me the same way. I love this woman. I love Lost Love Fairy. That is so funny that she showed her husband this. Gun to my head, my husband has to read my book, which does not have smut, but it does have me ogling a character based off of him a lot. So there is a character in my book that is 100% my husband. It used to be my husband's name because I could not fathom writing a love story about somebody who was not my husband. So, and my heart was broken when he's like, please change the name of your character. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you, Ellen. Anyway. So I do a lot of ogling of this character, and my husband would hate to read that. He would be so embarrassed thinking that I thought of him that way. Sorry, Ellen. Fine, yes, it's Adam. It's based off of my husband. So anyways, I love that she had her husband read this and wants him to read smut. Go girl, get some. Broaden your horizons with your husband. That is so adorable. I absolutely love it. I thought that was so freaking cute. Anyways, I loved all of the author notes when she's talking to the readers. Like, she's like, I like to maintain anonymity, and it's because I get really personal in my author's notes. So, very, very cute. Absolutely loved this. Anyways, so we finish. Let me get back to the main plot here. Gosh, I don't know how long have I been doing this? An hour and a half talking about this review. Sorry, author, you were probably like dying for me to get on with it. But anyways, so we end with Vinaya and Nithin splitting up. Part 2 is 4 years later. And I feel like it's really cool what she does between part 1 and part 2. However, the delivery after dinner, her husband just softly, shh, close your eyes. No, textual. No. I really hope not. He's like, so you're into this, right? She's going to regret that. Okay. So I feel like part 1 and part 2, are very totally different stories. So and man, I liked part two. I really liked part two. It got wild in part two. Part one was just like the slow burn you're expecting of, for the forbidden love, best friend or brother's best friend, forced proximity, a little bit of enemies to lovers. That was the first half. Then they split up and he's like, wait for me. I want to make this work. And then throughout 4 years, doesn't answer a single one of her texts, he spends those 4 years building up his company. He becomes a multimillionaire or billionaire or something. And like with his company is very, very successful. He is seen in tabloids with a bunch of women and he is not responding to, and so her heart is broken. The main character's heart is broken. She has been waiting for him. And he did that. So, and the way I feel like that first chapter, which I can't remember which chapter it is. Oh my gosh. It's 20 something, like 25 probably, where we're breaking in from like, chapter one or part one and part two. I feel like they should be two separate books, by the way. And that would make so much more sense because again, this book was an 11-hour read. So I feel like it needs to be Not My Little Sister. And then the second one needs to be like a different story. So like a continuation of the same story, but a separate book. Anyways, so he's a total a-hole. Her heart's broken. They meet at Mohan's wedding again for the first time in 4 years. He's this rich playboy and she's this doctor now. She's like still working on becoming like a true doctor. And she lives in Houston, Texas. He's been staying in New York. So they meet and when he sees her, he's like, oh my gosh, I still want to marry you. And she was like, are you kidding me? Boy, bye. Like, no, like she's pissed off at him. And he is the worst. Oh my gosh. So Nathan goes from like this, and it's Nathan. I don't know how you pronounce his name. So sorry. Nathan sounds right though, doesn't it? Nathan sounds right. Anyways, so he shows up to Mohan's wedding. Keep in mind, Mohan and him are not friends anymore, but he shows up to his wedding anyways and hits on Vinaya immediately. And he's like, I came here to marry you. I came to India to see you and to marry you. I'm reducing him to Nathan based on his behavior. Yes. I'm trying to think if I knew any good Nathans. My little sister dated a Nathan and he was horrible to her. And he was younger than her. Who takes crap from a kid that's younger than you? Not me. Anyways, so Nathan, I'm going to start pronouncing his name Nathan now because that sounds better than Nathan. Nathan shows up looking suave. He's rich now. He's the talk of the town or whatever. And meanwhile, Vinaya everybody's like, she's 26 years old and she's not married. Oh my goodness. What a failure. She's just some doctor. Can you imagine the shame of being a pediatric emergency doctor with no husband? Oh my goodness. Disgusting. Exactly. So you immediately lose sympathy for Vinaya. Just kidding. You start to like Vinaya, I feel like, in the part two. So then Nathan shows up and he's like, I want to marry you. Oh my gosh, you're so hot. And then he proceeds to be a total a-hole to her. I'm 27 years old. I have no money and no prospects. I'm already a burden onto my parents. And I'm frightened, Lizzie. So don't you dare judge me. I'm right there with you, Ellen. I know exactly what you're talking about. Meanwhile, you see something where it's like, I'm 26 years old. What am I, a child bride? Lots of different... There's a spectrum of what expectations are versus what is reality. Do whatever you want. Worst day of my life was turning 28 and not being able to say that every time. Oh my gosh. I was never able to. I got married super young. So I hate Nathan. I hate him so much. Oh my goodness. I hate him so much. I was like, I hope this ends in his murder when we get into part two, because he's saying stuff like, oh, money will buy you anything. Because he's like rich now. He's like, money will buy you anything. could buy you family, could buy you friends, buys me plenty of girls. He says that to her after she's done nothing wrong, keep in mind. And she tried to reach out to him. She's been waiting for him this whole time, completely heartbroken. And then he says crap like that. And I'm just like, oh, and he like wants to be with her. And then you get into his POV and it's all like, oh, I missed her so much. She's so hot. I'm sorry. I don't care if you think she's hot. Of course she's hot. She's the main character. What the heck? I'm so mad. I was so mad. We get into part 2 and we're at the wedding. And then this other guy's like trying to marry her. And he's like, look, I looked you up. You seem great. I just wanted to get to know you a little bit. We're from the same cast. Our families approve. And we're getting into the arranged marriage part of this, like really, really in the thick of the arranged marriage culture in India, or at least the people in this story. And I have zero experience with actually knowing people who were in an arranged marriage. So this was all so interesting to me. Like this part 2 was so interesting to me because I knew nothing about it. And it's like you're thrust into this world where arranged marriage is very important to this culture, and people really, really, it's what's expected. There's like a lot of pressure to marry somebody that your families approve, and it happens super fast, and you're not expected to love the person that you're marrying. I could not imagine. And I would die. If you ever played that like would you rather game, if I had to pick somebody that my parents picked out for me, my parents know nothing about me. Like they don't get me at all. They would pick out such an idiot for me. Ugh. No, I would be so mad. And especially because of the way that her family treats her. It's like this horrible situation. I would feel so trapped. I can't imagine, because this is still going on to this day. Like, it's like, this is totally normal for this culture. And I'm sure that a lot of people are like, yeah, well, family is trying to look out for you. And like, they want to pick somebody nice for you, and somebody who they can trust and all this stuff. But it's like, man, you don't know a person like until you're probably married to them. Like, why would you assume that you know them just because you know their parents? Like, I know my husband's parents, who, by the way, I love my husband's parents. The both of them are great, but I would never assume that my husband came from them. And if you met my parents, you would not assume that I came from them. Like, we are not the same. Our values are not the same. Like, yeah, it's just like, wow, this whole thing is very, very interesting. So Nathan's like, I'm gonna marry you. And this other guy's like, oh, well, I'd like to marry you. And Vinaya's like, look, I'm not interested in an arranged marriage. I don't have a boyfriend or anything, but I don't want to marry you, this oncologist guy, because they're doctors. They live in the same town. Their families are friends. Perfect match, right? And she's like, now pass. And she doesn't, his physical description isn't, he's just like some sub character, right? We don't really know him anyways. The next day, Nathan shows up with his parents, to the house with his parents, saying, I want to marry you. I've talked to my parents. They're on board. They'd be super happy if they were married. Keeping in mind that in the first part of this book, it was a huge plot point that his parents would not be supportive of their relationship. But he has been working on them for this whole time, basically saying, I want to marry Vinaya. I want to marry Vinaya. I will marry literally nobody else but her. And so he's been working on them this whole time. Of course, that's not made clear at any point. So you're just all of a sudden like, what the heck? What's, you talked to your parents into marrying me. Your parent, my parents are obviously very excited about me marrying a family friend who's a millionaire, billionaire, whatever he is. So anyways, and so she was like, what? Like, you want to marry me? Like, I don't want to marry you. Like, you broke my heart. Guess what happens? The families pressure her into marrying him like that moment, that day. Like, they do their horoscopes and they have like a special guy there. It's so cool actually, because like they have like this guy show up, and this it's like a priest or something who like does their horoscopes and does their I forget what it is. He does all this stuff and finds out that they're a perfect match, but Vinaya has like this like bad karma, so they have to get, or bad like align, like Mars is in the wrong place, so they need to get married within a certain window, otherwise it's going to spell like disaster throughout their lives, and Nathine would die. Like it's like her husband will die. And apparently, and this was another really cool little tidbit, apparently if that happens and a woman has that, what they will has this like Mars thing or something where it's like it's, I forget what the word was, and they had spelled it out too. It was like the Moran Shonda, something like that. And I know that I'm saying that wrong, so I'm really sorry, author, for disrespecting your culture by not being able to remember these words. But anyways, if the wife has that in her life, a lot of times what she'll do is she will marry a tree, and then they will cut down the tree to symbolize the death of her first husband. So that way, like fulfilling the prophecy on a tree instead of an actual husband. Crazy. It's so crazy, so interesting, but that's like the culture that they're dealing with. So they're saying like, oh, well, Mars will be in the wrong place tomorrow, so you can either marry him today, or you guys will have to wait 12 years and then you can get married in 12 years. And so their families are like, just marry him today. You guys are best friends. Weren't you guys in love? Like, like just he's rich. You could be able to live in America because you would marry, because Nathine is actually an American citizen because he was born in the US, and then moved to India temporarily and then is back in the US. So if she were to marry him, she could get her green card. Like there's so many like transactional type of things that are in the favor of her marrying Nathine. On top of the fact that she's in love with him. She's been waiting to marry him, but he broke her heart. Like he just ghosted her and has been seen with all these other women. So I love the drama. Oh, I lived for the drama in part 2. It was so amazing. This marriage drama was wild. So anyways, they're going through this thing. Meanwhile, he is still being a jerk to her. He has not like been like, I missed you. I've been waiting for you. The only thing positive that he has said was, like, I want to marry you, and I've done all of this so that I can marry you. But he says it in such a mean way. And he's like saying stuff like, talking about prostitutes, talking about hooking up with girls, talking about like, he's basically just like this scumbag rich guy. And the old Nathine, who I wasn't even a big fan of to start with, is gone. And so she's like, I was in love with this man who doesn't exist anymore. Oh, and I have a favorite quote for this one. Hang on, let me pull it up. And I was like, okay, so this is what she said, and I feel like this is one of my favorite quotes in this thing, where it says, she couldn't comprehend what had come over her. Tears stung her eyes once more as she grappled with the realization that this wasn't the Nathine she knew, the selfless, generous, and respectful Nathine she had known and grown to love. This version of him was unfathomable, and she refused to accept it. And I felt that because I was like, he is a dickhead now. Like, what, he is like such a jerk now. And she like, and then I think that this quote was after they got married. Like, it's so crazy. Because even after, she's like, I can't, like, it just happened so fast. It was so chaotic. There was so much pressure on them. This is like the same day. It was like the same day or the next day that they did this. And they did like all of these ceremonies, and the family was there the entire time. Nathine's totally on board. He's like, yep, he's like totally treating her as property to be bought at this point, because he's like, I got my money. I got the support. What are you going to say no? I want you. And I get you. Like, he's changed. He was not, in my opinion, he was not great from the get-go. Like, that's me not liking this character. But man, then the author is clearly like, I don't like this character either now. He turns into a jerk. Time to marry the oncologist. Yes, dislike 1000%. Did not like Nathine. So then he's talking about how rich he is. And she's like, you know, when I fell in love with you, it was in your cockroach-infested apartment on your smelly fart futon. Time to get a ton of cats. Yes. So, and it's a bunch of things where it's like, he's trying to impress her with his money, and meanwhile, he's just coming off as arrogant, but he also resents her if she's ever impressed with his money. Right. So he just sucked. Super, super bad. So we're not getting a lot from Nathine. And when we do, it's not good. He's in love with her. He looks at her. He's filled with lust. He wants her, every part of her. He wants her body, her heart, her mind. And it really, the way that it reads to me is that like he just wants her, but doesn't really, he just doesn't seem capable of like love in the sense that I would appreciate it, right? And there was a really funny quote actually that totally got me. So they're like, they still have their witty banter, and after they get married, they don't like consummate the marriage for a very long time, which I think is pretty standard because they get married and then they get to know each other and then they can, get freaky. Yeah. So, Vinaya, so this was a really, really funny quote that had me laughing. So, and because they're just like constantly fighting because they like don't like each other, but now they're married. And so he says, this is a quote, Vinaya glared at him, her indignation evident. "Screw you," she retorted. "Can't wait," he shot back, his tone teasing. And it's like constantly like about sex for him. And it's so frustrating. But that was funny to me. Screw you. Can't wait. That's what I'm here for, babe. I really just think you're smoking and like, oh my gosh. So then we get further into story. He's still being a jerk, not explaining himself whatsoever. Like just constantly with this wanting to like own her like property type of inner thoughts and the way that he's treating her. It's just atrocious. I hated it so much until we get to this one part where it all kind of clicked. So he said, so this is the quote. Nathine followed her out of the room, his thoughts swirling. Everything was getting out of hand. He loved her, even now after all those years, but there was something that made him push her away the moment they got close. He didn't understand it. He wanted this. He wanted her in every way possible. And that's when we kind of get this break from jerk Nathine to this complicated person who really is in love with Vinaya, has been in love with Vinaya, only wants Vinaya, will not be happy with anybody but her, but also he feels heartbroken because he feels like the fact that he was asked to choose between his company and her, she was after his money. And so he wants to impress her with his money, but then also resents her from being impressed by it. And so that's like his thoughts is like, he wants to make her happy. He wants to make this work. He wants them to be in love like they were. But meanwhile, he's dealing with his own version of heartbreak, even though he is 100% the one who always did wrong in this relationship. In this whole story, he's the one who really screwed up every single time. But he's dealing with his own complicated feelings. He has been trying for 4 years to build his company up. So that way he could impress everybody. So he could impress everybody so that he could have Vinaya. Everything that he has done for the last 4 years was to get to Vinaya so that he could marry her. Now, she's been seeing this, like she has like a Google alert in her phone for Nathine, and she's been seeing this stuff as like, oh, he's with some starlet. He has some freaking, not supermodel. She's like an actress. He has some actress girlfriend. And in fact, it quotes him saying like, because she gets caught cheating on her husband with Nathine. And apparently Nathine is found quoted saying, well, marriage is just something on paper. Like the marriage is nothing. It turns out he has been with nobody since Vinaya. He has been seen doing all this stuff because he started getting into the publicity game for the sake of his company. And when he was caught in the act with this actress who is apparently his girlfriend, this was all just a publicity stunt because she was married to this NFL guy, and she was trying to get away from him, trying to get away from the NFL guy, and the NFL guy was physically abusing her. So it was like this big complicated thing. So anyways, this is all explained. And then Vinaya falls in love with him again. They fall in love. A likely story. Yeah, seriously. NFL has a terrible, terrible reputation for having the players being abusive towards their wives and towards their girlfriends and people in general. If you're not familiar with the NFL, that is like it's common with athletes, but I feel like it's special in the NFL. And it's so funny because there's this Bill Burr joke where Bill Burr loves football. Like his favorite thing ever is, and he's a comedian, by the way, like a very like blunt, hilarious comedian. And he loves football and he hates the commercials of football that are against domestic violence. And so because it's the NFL trying to save face, saying like they don't cover up, because they've made the NFL has covered up their players being abusive towards their wives. And so they do these stupid PR things, and love him. I met him once. He's super nice and his wife is a sweetheart. Oh, you met Bill Burr? Are you kidding me? He's like one of my favorite comedians. Cherry, how have you not said this before? Oh my gosh, I love him. I love him so much. And the jokes he makes about his wife are hilarious too, because it's very clear, like he's not like, anyways, Cherry, his wife hosted her birthday party at my old restaurant. Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah, I love Bill Burr. I think he's hilarious. I adore him. He's so funny. Anyways, one of his jokes was he's sick of watching football games, and for them being these like commercials that are basically like domestic violence, awareness type things. And he's like, I don't want to see this when I'm watching football. Why are you treating me like I beat my wife? That was you guys. You guys covered it up. You guys. So it's like, it's funny where it's like, Bill Burr just sees it how it is. I love that. He like sees things through like clear glass windows. I love that about his comedy. But anyways, so it was this Nathine, back to the story. Nathine was in this like PR relationship with this girl who is just his friend, and he found out about this abusive relationship, and he was like, hey, like, let's figure something out to get you out of this, and everything. Then now Vinaya and Nathine are in love, and everything's going really well. And then she goes to surprise him where he lives in New York, because right now they kind of still live separately, because he works in New York and she works in Houston. And so she goes to surprise him, and guess who's there in a towel? The actress that apparently he was dating. And so I love that, like, there's like drama all the way up until the end, where there's even like a gunman, and it goes back to like the Mars alignment and this ring that she has to wear, that the like priest that they had talked to that forced her into getting married had told her to wear, otherwise her husband would die. And it's like this whole big thing. It has a happy ending. Everybody's happy. But there's just like so much drama. The second half of this book is like jam-packed with drama. It is delightful. I absolutely loved the drama in the second half of this book. So as far as plot goes, there was a lot going on, but it was captivating. It was interesting. It was juicy. I loved it. I thought that as far as this is my concluding thoughts on the book. That the first half, I would have definitely worked on the chemistry between the love interest. I feel like there was a lot of character development being made. By the time you get into the second part, though, the ground is laid, and it just really makes way for all of the amazing drama that happens. The introduction to the culture, which I thought was so interesting. It was a good read. I was surprised. I do not feel like this author relied on smut to make her story interesting. It was interesting already. That's the book. I thought the book was thrilling. Again, the drama was incredible. The arranged marriage stuff was really, really interesting. The Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde type thing that Nathine was doing was interesting and frustrating. And I would have liked to see more consistency or character development with Vinaya's character, as well as Nathine's, because I did not like him in the first half, and I don't think that 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 was intentional. I think you were supposed to be in love with Nathine. I was not. I was like, girl, you could do better. Anybody can do better. Both of you guys could do better because I don't really like either of you. But by the second half, I was in. I was very invested. I feel like the jumping from scene to scene was very choppy, very abrupt. I feel like jumping from POV to different POV, there was not a lot of flow. And I feel like there was, I think I had mentioned this earlier, where there was just like huge spans with just dialogue, then huge spans with no dialogue. And I that's where I feel like it could use the majority of the improvement is just building chemistry, building characters, and setting the scene. However, plot-wise, is pretty fun. Very, very fun book. Thank you so much, Lost Love Fairy, for allowing me to read and review your book. Thank you for being so patient. I'm very glad that I read this book. Yeah, it was great. And the drama does sound fantastic. Messy as fuck. Yes, it absolutely is. But it was great. It was messy. It was chaotic. It was fast moving. But nowhere in my head was I like, this is just too much. It was never like that. It was like, more drama. I love it. Show me the actress in the towel. Show me the gunman trying to kill the husband. Show me the having to get married that day and the whirlwind of that. Show me the new husband being a total jerk all of a sudden. This is all the second half. Like the second half drama was lovely. The first half was like building the foundation, which I think is where the book needs work, or the story needs work. But yeah, the rest of it is like very interesting. I loved learning more about the arranged marriage, like Indian culture. I was actually just talking with my friend who lives in Turkey about this earlier, not about arranged marriage, but about just different cultures in general, because he was basically saying like, oh no, like the kids live with their parents for as long as they want. And I was like, gosh, in America, it's like kind of frowned upon to live with your parents. I know personally for me, my parents were like, you should be out of the house when you turn 18. Hardly got to know the tree though. Oh my gosh. Textual, you seriously are hilarious. You got the axe quick. Yeah. No, that was interesting. That was all interesting. But like just cultures are different. And I feel like I'm so little exposed to these other cultures. But I was talking to my Turkish friend and he was like, oh yeah, they're not, I should be able to rely on my parents to support me for as long as I possibly can. Right. That's smart for me. And again, I was like, get me out of this house as quickly as possible. And if you're in the US, maybe you relate to this, but my parents were like, when you turn 18, you are officially an adult. You should be taking care of yourself. You should be, I mean, I know that some kids stay with their parents while they're in college to get through college. My parents were like, if you want to go to college, you better figure that out because I'm not paying for your college. I remember getting I was like, Mom, I got into all the colleges I applied for. And her reaction was like, I don't know how you're going to afford that. And I like had no idea that it was like that. Oh, that's how it is. Like, you're not going to pay for my college. You're not going to support me while I go to college. Like, I'm expected to leave the house at 18 years old. And that was, at least that was my family. I know it's not like that with every single family, but I do think that in America, the familial ties are a bit different, where you're expected to get together on holidays and birthdays and all that and special occasions, but you don't live with your family. There's not like the parents, I feel like the parents in America are not like, yes, I would love it if my 30-year-old son and his new wife lived with us. I don't think that they would like that. My parents would not like that at all. They would consider me a failure if I did that. And I feel like that is like the American culture. I love that in other cultures, it's wildly different, where they're supporting each other, just there for each other. Although, one thing I do like about America is that my parents have zero say in who I marry. I mean, my husband did ask my dad permission to marry me, but let's be real. We did not need his permission to marry at all. Like, like it's like, yeah. So being immersed in a different culture was very cool, and it was very interesting. And the author did a really good job of providing like little notes at the end, where they were explaining about the culture, explaining certain words that meant like brother and sister in different foods. And it was great as far as like learning more about the Indian culture. It was very interesting. I would love to read more about this. I remember I read another book by a Haitian author, and they would provide little details about Haiti that I had known nothing about Haiti. And that's another thing that's great about Wattpad, is that you're getting to know like these authors from these different cultures, and you get to jump into their world a little bit. And thank you for writing in English for me. Take One More Step. Freaking love that book. Yes. Oh my gosh. Take One More Step. That's the book I was talking about. Yes. I love that author a ton. And I loved that book. And that was one where that's it. So if it's actually, I think it might be on my recommended reads on my Wattpad. It makes sense for it to be, because I really did enjoy that book. I found the author in the comments of Heroine. Yep. Yeah, she's a reader. So yeah, Take One More Step is really cute, but you get to learn about the Haitian culture, which is so fun. I mean, and then in children's games, you get to learn more about Australia. It's like you get to travel the world when you read these books, and Wattpad has authors from all over, and it is so fun to read books in these different POVs, or in these, about these different cultures from somebody who lives in that culture. Amazing. I loved that. I love that about this book. So those are, that is, I think, officially my review on Not My Little Sister, a 2-hour long review. Holy crap. It was a long book. I had a lot to say. That was a long one. Oh my gosh. So if there's any other authors out there who would like a review, just know that I may force you to sit down for a solid 2 hours to listen to my review. Holy crap. I need to stop talking about it, even though I feel like I have even more to say about this book. But I'll stop now. Anyways, that's the end of my review. Does anybody have any thoughts about that review that I just provided at all? Because I feel like I just went over so much. Such a long book. Very cool book, though. The drama was chef's kiss. Yes, it absolutely was. The drama was peak. It was, I was about to say like, oh, it was very soapy, like soap opera-y, where it was just like crazy, but I don't think it was soapy so much as it was, because soapy is like, oh, they were in a coma. Oh, they have an evil twin. Oh, that kind of stuff. But it was very like high stakes drama, constant drama. It was cool. I liked it a lot. But I have not picked out the next book that I'm going to be reading and reviewing, but I am excited about it. The male love interest doesn't sound my thing, but the plot sounds fast paced as heck. It was. There was something going on a lot. It wasn't like a lot of Lost in Blue. Well, I would love to do Lost in Blue. However, I have not gotten Krisha has not done the, like, asked for it officially on my review book. Although I would love to read it. Messaging Krisha now. Yeah, do it, because I would love to read and review that book. And I would drop everything to do it, actually, just because I was telling my husband, like, oh yeah, I reviewed a couple of short stories last week, and he was like, a short story? What do you have to say about a short story? And I was like, I don't know, but I talked about it for like 45 minutes, so plenty. Like I had plenty to say about it. But I would love to read Lost in Blue, because I think that is just gonna be, it's probably gonna be amazing if it's anything like Megaverse. But yeah, I haven't picked it. I had a question. What counts as a long book on Wattpad to you? Oh, I mean, 10 hours is long. I feel like 7 hours is like what a standard novel would be. But I see a lot of like moderately sized novels that are like 4 hours long. That I feel like that's a little bit on the low side, is like a 4 hour read. I feel like that's a really quick read, right? A 10-hour read, that's a thick book. And then again, like between 5 and 7, I feel like is normal. But like for instance, Celadon Bay, I feel like was a 7-hour read. But I blew through that one. And I thought 7 hours seems like a long one. I don't know how many words that is. the author of Celadon Bay had told me. I forget how many words it is. But I am trying to, I like to pick the shorter ones to read because then I can spend more time on the review. And because I am trying to rewrite my book and I'm completely out of time. I've been reading The Idiot by Dostoevsky for like weeks now. Normally I read like about a book a week and then read a Wattpad, so I'm reading like 2 or 3 books a week because I'm reading a Wattpad book and then I'm reading my like other reading. Word counts are like step count. Who cares how many? It's all how you get there. Yeah. So I haven't been having a lot of time to read my other books lately because I've been spending a lot of time writing. And man, driving my husband crazy with the writing. He requires a lot of attention. So he's like, "Are you writing again? Can I get my back scratches? Can we watch a movie?" And I'm sitting there like, yes, I'm in love with you, so I'll hang out with you. But I'm also really, really into writing this now. Will we see a new update this weekend? Yeah, I'm going to try and update every Monday. My plan was to update on Tuesdays, but then last Monday I was too excited. And then I updated. I'm excited for your second chapter. Well, the first one was the prologue. So the next one's going to be the first chapter. And it's like 5,000 words long. It's way too long. But again, who cares about word count according to textual? Thank you. But yeah, I'm excited about my first chapter. It's very different than the initial first chapter. I've rewritten this first chapter like 15 billion times. It's crazy. But I'm really excited about where the story is going to go. But it also has been stressing me out because I don't have enough time to write it. And the plan was for me to write the prologue in 3 chapters and then post the prologue. So that way I knew, I was like, okay, I have like 3 weeks, buffer. If I ever fall behind at any point, then I don't have to worry about falling behind on my updates. But I was so excited after I rewrote the prologue. I was like, I'm going to post it now and I'll just catch up later. I don't know where I think this time is. Lost in Blue is 4 hours, just checked. Oh yeah, Lost in Blue is not to me, considered a long read. Plus, I know I'm going to burn through that. I will probably read that in like one day. Like I will stay up late probably reading it just because of her writing style. I was also supposed to make a buffer, then I just didn't. Same. Yep, exactly. You just get so excited for somebody to read it and to get the comments. Ellen, I cannot tell you how happy I am when I see that you're reading my book. Like, this was during the first draft of Heroine, and now with just the prologue, I was like, it's back, that feeling in my stomach that I get. Like, it is just the absolute best thing in the world. I can't get enough of the comments. It's so much fun. That is, like, seriously the entire reason why I like posting to Wattpad. So I can get those comments. It's unreal. I love it so much. So much. I think I'm the worst kind of spam commenter. There's no such thing. I used to think the same about myself. Like, I'm just blowing up this person's. In fact, Cherry. Oh my gosh. So when I was reading one of Cherry's books, and this was, me and Cherry were not like close. Yes, he spelled best wrong. Exactly. So me and Cherry were not, I don't know how close of friends we were. I think we were like just starting to become friends. When I was reading one of her books and I was just commenting like crazy because it was when her sequel was coming out. And, so this was Elemental, the sequel, Heart of Water. And I was leaving crap ton of comments, going crazy with the comments because I was like, this author likes the comments. It's fine if I read a bunch and she doesn't care if she gets a bunch of notifications. Anyway, so then one of the other readers was like, do you have to say everything that you think? Like, had commented on one of my comments. It was like, do you have to say everything that you think? It's very distracting. Or must you or something? And so my response was like, I must. And gave them like a thumbs up. And I was like, who is this person who's like, you do not have to read my comments. Why are you opening up my comments to read them? And they should not be a distraction to you. And then so I messaged Cherry and I was like, hey, are these... And then that commenter blocked me immediately. And then when I responded. So I was going to message them, and I was like, because I was going to message them and say like, hey, just so you know, you don't actually have to read the comments that other readers post. You can just blow right through the book, so you don't need to get distracted by them. Anyways, but they blocked me before I could say that. I was going to be kind because I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be a jerk to another reader. I don't want to scare off Cherry's readers. And then I messaged Cherry, and I was like, hey, like, do you ever get bothered? Oh, nice. Okay, I didn't realize you can turn off the comments. But I messaged Cherry, and I was like, do you get bothered by all of my comments? And she was like, no, I live for your comments. Like, please leave all of your comments. Because for a moment there, I was insecure. Like, oh crap, I didn't realize that this was annoying. You know, I have not met a single person who thinks comments are annoying. If I ever blow up on Wattpad and get like a ton of comments, it's going to be the happiest day of my life. And I will read every single one of them, even if it takes me hours and hours and hours to read them, because it is seriously so much fun. Ugh, it's so much fun. Comments are the bomb. Always leave all the comments. You will be hard pressed to find an author who does not absolutely live for those comments. Every single author I've ever talked to, it's their life. So if you're wondering if you should be leaving me comments, just know that they brighten up my day so much. I'm walking on sunshine around my house. My family's like, did somebody read your book? Because they see my smiling face. Like, if you're a reader and you are annoyed about getting distracted by all the comments, you can simply turn them off. Yes, the authors love them. I am, as a reader, love reading other people's comments too, especially when I read something shocking. I want to see what somebody else has to say about it. I'm totally going to read it. So yes, comments all the way. That's what makes Wattpad special, in my opinion. You can read any book anywhere, but the comments, especially the inline comments, they're so fun. The inline comments are probably my favorite. And then it's always really telling. I had a reader who I lost at some point because they did not keep reading Heroine. They hated my main character. They hated Rose. And they were just constantly talking about how annoying she was and how they didn't think that she was likable. And it was very helpful to me because I was like, oh, she's hilarious. She's obnoxious, but she's hilarious. But there were certain parts where it's like I had made her unlikable. And that's helpful information. What's wrong with them? Well, they had read a draft where the main character was like a bitch to her mom, you know, and it made her, but Rose is badass. She is. I love Rose as a main character. She's great. I just need her to be funny. Like her whole point is to be funny and good, but also vicious and brutal. Like that's what I want for my main character. But yeah, if she has a complicated relationship with somebody and that's how you introduce that character, I can see why they would come off as not very likable. But okay, keep in mind, I don't know if Joe, you have not read this part, but this same person didn't like the twins. And that's when I was like, okay, if you don't like the twins, then I don't trust your judgment because the twins are precious. They're hilarious. It's like if you didn't like Peter Pan, who I also love. So Peter Pan is my like outlet for my immature humor. And then the twins are my outlet for kind of like sibling humor. And then Rose is my outlet for just super based like roasting humor. And then Kelly is my outlet for sarcastic humor. Like they all have their different and like dry humor. And then even the little girl who her name was Summer. Now I'm going to be changing it to her name to Grace. She was even my outlet for like little baby humor. Like I do love how everyone has their own distinct humor. Yeah, like I like needed different people because like all of those humors are my sense of humor. Reminds me of Buffy. That's high praise. That is high praise because I borderline based Rose off of Buffy. Like the things that I liked about Buffy. She's not like as dramatic as Buffy can get, but I love that. I absolutely love that. I have my different people for different humor, but I need all of the funnies for sure. But anyways, so if you didn't like certain characters, then I can see why. I can see that you're not going to like the rest of the book. So if you don't like the twins and you don't like Pete, then you're definitely not going to like Rose, because she is rude. her sense of humor is very like rude and blunt and can be totally taken wrong. But I thought the twins are hilarious, and I think Pete is hilarious. So if you don't like them, then you're not going to like the rest of the book. That's facts. And that's how I started off the prologue, because if you don't like the prologue, then you're not going to like the rest of the book. But if you do like the prologue, then you're probably going to like the rest of the book. So I've been talking about my own book for probably too long. And I have to go. It's time for me to go pick up my baby. Both my babies. So anyways, thank you everybody for sticking around for the review. And thanks for coming to my Twitch stream. We got a great group. I love this. I love doing my streams, by the way. I really look forward to them every week. So thanks for coming. And thanks, Ellen, for being part of the team now. Love you all. Mwah.